Hello, year six. So it is Wednesday, the 27th of January. Just again, I'm just going to start out by saying how brilliant some of your work has been this week. Some fantastic pieces of writing, some amazing big read work. It's looking like this new structure to our big read lessons where we've got a little bit more detail. We're reminding ourselves of previous lessons. We've got the challenges. It's looking like it's really working. So thank you very much for your feedback and thank you very much for all your hard work. So Wednesday, 27th of January today. Nearly done with January already. And our starter activity today is, I'm just going to move that down slightly so that you can see it. The starter today is a bit of a question, and I want you to have a think about this question. So the author repeats, Maz Evans, the author, repeats the phrase "any second" in the first paragraph. She says it a few times. I've put for you down underneath here 3 reasons why you think Maz Evans, or why I think maybe Maz Evans, decides to repeat that phrase "any second." And it's just in this section here. I'm trying to find somewhere to put myself that's out of the way. Go there for now. So, do you think Maz Evans repeats the phrase "any second" because it shows that Elliot is getting increasingly worried about Virgo? Do you think it's because it shows that Elliot is really impressed with how long Virgo has managed to hold her breath? Or do you think it's because it emphasizes the point that Virgo really isn't human? You've got 3 options there. All I'd like you to do for your starter activity, I'd like you to choose one of those options and then write why you chose that, why you think that is the correct reason that Maz Evans chooses to repeat the phrase "any second." Okay, when you've done that, you can start the video back up again and we'll move on to having a bit of a recap of what we did yesterday. So I'll speak to you again in a moment. But pause the video and have a go at that starter for me. Wonderful. Okay, so recap then of yesterday's work. Yesterday, we were looking at those retrieval questions, and one of them that you had was this green one. What 2 things does Elliot give Virgo before bundling her out the door? Well, the answer to that is in green just there. Elliot gave Virgo her flask and a piece of toast. So the 2 things that Elliot gives Virgo before bundling her out the door are her flask and a piece of toast. That was what we looked at yesterday. We looked at those retrieval questions, those questions where something is directly in the text, and you can see that with what I've highlighted just there. Today, our Walt is to answer inference questions. Now, inference is a sort of different style of question to the ones we found today. Yesterday even. Yesterday we were looking at retrieval, and we said that retrieval, that's your what, your where, your who, your when, your how, but it isn't normally your why. Now, I did actually have Fatten message me and saying that I did put in a why question on the retrieval, and you can get why questions sometimes. It's just very uncommon. You can get a why question if there is an exact answer in the text. But if you don't have to apply your own thinking at all, if you have to read between the lines, if you have to be a reading detective, that is an inference question. So let's have a look then at what sort of things we might see. So as it says there, inference is the reading art of being able to understand more from a text than we are explicitly told. Explicit is when something is directly told to us. Implicit, I-M-P-L-I-C-I-T, that is the opposite. Implicit is when we have to work something out. So if we're not explicitly being told something, then that is inference. So we've got a snippet of chapter 6 just here, the page after the page we got to yesterday. I can't remember what page number that is, 40 something, I believe. So, for example, just here, we can use yesterday's retrieval skills to know what Virgo is doing and how Elliot is reacting. So it's only, and we know that because it says 45 seconds, fair play, the girl could hold her breath. So we know Virgo's holding her breath. We know that Elliot is taking off his jacket. We know that he's thinking about jumping in. However, we can only get a good idea how this might, and I've put might in orange because the whole point of inference is it's not necessarily right or wrong. It's your opinion supported by evidence. You get the marks on an inference question by showing good enough evidence to support your opinion. It's all about opinion and evidence. So we can only get a good idea how this might be making Elliot feel. So the ability to gather more information from a text than the author is actually giving to us, than we're explicitly being told, is crucial to gaining a much more thorough understanding. It's something that you do need to be able to do confidently in secondary school, which is why we're practicing it now. It's going to be something they expect you to be able to do. So we need you to be ready to hit the ground running. So there's a useful way to practice your inference though, and we've looked at it already. It's using those inference sums. So if I've got the inference, Elliot is worried about Virgo, and it's coming from this section of text, that's my inference. That's my opinion on how Elliot is feeling at this point. But nowhere in that text does it say Elliot is worried about Virgo. We need to use evidence to support that inference. And we can find the evidence from the text, and we use quotes where we can. So one bit of evidence might be the author repeats the phrase any second now. To me, that shows that Elliot is worried about Virgo. Have a bit of a go at finding me one more bit of evidence that could go in this inference sum. Because remember, we want evidence plus evidence equals our inference. I've given you the inference, I've given you one bit of evidence. See if you can find another bit of evidence in that text that would go in. If you're in school, you can discuss this with the people around you and have a conversation. If you're at home, maybe getting your parents involved, ask them, or just have a go at writing it down. Pause the video though while you have a think, then click play again, and I'll show you the other bit of inference that I found to add together, the other bit of evidence, sorry, that I found to add together to get my inference. Pause it now, have that conversation or write it down, then start it up again, and I'll show you the second bit that I got. Okay, so the other bit that I got was Elliot does not, and there's a quote here, just like there was in the first one where I quoted any second now. Elliot does not want, we use square brackets to add in a word to make a quote make sense, which is what I've done there. Elliot does not want Virgo to catch pneumonia, even though she, in another quote, might be a pain. And it tells us that at the end. Elliot took off his jacket to warm her when she'd finished her silly stunt. Virgo might be a pain, which I've quoted, in the bum, but he didn't want her to catch pneumonia. He's clearly worried. He's worried she's going to catch pneumonia. So I've got two bits of evidence there that I think support my inference being Elliot is worried about Virgo. We have practiced these before. So let's have a look at another one. So by sticking to this pattern of inference sums, evidence plus evidence equals the inference, it helps us remember that the key when answering any inference question is always and invariably to provide evidence. The more evidence, the better. So let's have a look at another one. This time though, the evidence has already been put in for you. So I want you to then think what the inference might be. So here's my evidence. Elliot's heartbeat is described as having quickened. And then he also realizes he could be responsible for Virgo's life if he doesn't act. They're my two bits of evidence from that bit of text. If they're my evidence, what could my inference be? Just like you did on the last slide, pause the video here, have a go at writing something down, or if you're in school, have a discussion about that. Two bits of evidence, what could the inference be? Play the video once you've had that conversation or once you've written that down. And I'll speak to you again when you do. Okay, so for me, when someone's heart has quickened and their heart's beating and racing, added with him being worried that he might be responsible for Virgo's life, that suggests to me that Elliot has begun to realize that Virgo could actually die doing this. And he's panicking about that idea, that actually this silly girl, in his opinion, could kill it herself, and he could be held responsible because he's not doing anything. And that's why he decides to do something. So those two bits of evidence added together, to me, create the inference of Elliot realizing that Virgo could actually hurt herself quite badly or even die doing this. So you see the routine. Evidence plus evidence equals your inference. And that's what you're going to be doing today. So in today's lesson, I'm going to have sent out to you, I already have, in fact, on today's assignment that I've sent out to you, I've attached some questions, green, orange, and red. You pick which ones you do. And they look a little bit like this. So the green ones, that's what the first two look like. There's more than that, but that's what the first two look like. So it's not done horizontally this time. Sorry, it's not done vertically this time, going down, because I couldn't do that and fit them all on. So it's just written out as a sum going across. Elliot says he is going to prison, plus he says that he is a horrible human, equals. So I've put two bits of evidence in there. I want you to tell me what the inference might be. The orange one looks like this. So this time I've put the inference in. I want you to give me the evidence. So something plus something equals Elliot had been really fed up of Virgo before she went in the river. And I've told you where to find your evidence for all of these as well, by the way. So on here, it tells you evidence on page 55. And then finally, the red ones, same again. Evidence plus evidence, you need to put the evidence in, and then I've given you the inference. On some of the orange and reds, there might need to be 3 bits of evidence put in. You'll see that on your sheet that I've sent to you there. You don't need to do this on the sheet. The difficulty is for me to attach a worksheet, I have to click worksheet as the evidence for you. That means it wants you to write on it. You don't need to. Just have it on the screen and write it in your book. And then you can send me a picture from your book. I know it's hard on the worksheets, so don't feel like you need to do it on the worksheet. It's just the only way I can send it to you. So they will be coming out to you separately from this video. My expectation is that you get all of those done of your challenge. If you want to have a go at one from another challenge, that's absolutely fine. There's a lot of you doing orange challenges, which is absolutely fine. If you find that you're getting all of those done, have a go at some of the red ones, or interchange. Try a red one, then go back to an orange if it's too hard. Just try and push yourself all the time. So that's what I'm expecting you to do today. When you've done that, as ever, make sure you're then sending that in. It tells you exactly which pages to go. All of these inferences are from pages 55, 56, and 57. And I tell you on which pages to find the evidence. So do look at that. Don't worry about finding the evidence from elsewhere. And I would like those quoted. Just because it's only a small gap doesn't mean I expect you to fit all of it in. That's just me showing you, here's where you will put some evidence, here's where you will put some evidence. Your evidence might be much longer than those gaps give you space for, which is why I'm saying write it in your book rather than trying to do it on the worksheet. I hope that all makes sense. I'm looking forward to seeing your answers to these inference questions, and I will get back to you with some feedback. I will also speak to you later for the English, where we are going to be using this routine again, sticking with the structure because it seems to be working. So I'll speak to you in that video very shortly. But for now, goodbye.